Hello and welcome to my Imperfect Knitting Life. This is episode 20. Now, if you haven't been to my channel before, it's predominantly about knitting, but also a little bit about my life and my mini commercial spinning mill, which I bought a couple of years ago. And I'm going to talk about that today, and I'm also going to take you on a little tour around the mill and talk about some of those processes. So the mill is kind of one of those things I have a love-hate relationship with. So I wish I could move it on and make a going concern out of it. And it definitely has the potential to do that because other people have exactly the same mill and they're doing it. What it does need is, well, a bit more consistent time in the mill, number one, and also just making sure those machines are running at the maximum that they can, or the best that they can. And I don't think they all are. So I'll talk about that later. The first thing I'm going to do is talk about my knitting. Then I will talk about, or tell you who the winners for the yarn packages are, and then I will talk about the mill, and then we'll have a little walk down. So you can see today I'm filming in a completely different place. The mill is quite cold at the moment and just not somewhere I want to be sitting for long periods, so I thought today I would just do it in my dining room. So it's an open plan kitchen diner, and I hope that the sound is okay. Anyway, I'm going on and on. Well, so let me start with my knitting. The first thing I'll start off with is actually what I'm wearing. And what I'm wearing is the Halibut, which is by Caitlin Hunter. So I'm actually quite pleased with it, and I'll talk you through the process, but that's what it's like. This is shed spun yarn, which I hand dyed myself from roving and put through the mill, but the white is in a hand spun that I did with a mohair. So the Halibut, if you haven't seen it before, is quite a popular knit at the moment. It's by Caitlin Hunter. What I loved about it is actually once you get into it, it's a pretty quick knit. Some of the things that are also nice about it is it's quite size inclusive. So it goes from an 86 centimeter bust to 188, which I think is quite a big variance. So that's good. The other thing that I like about it is top down. I really like knitting in the round. I don't love flat knitting at all anymore, unless it's, you know, shawl or whatever, scarf. And I used a 4.5mm needle. You start at the neck, and I did a mock turtleneck. So there's a full turtleneck, a mock turtleneck, and a crew. And I started at the neckline, and then you do some short row shaping at the back to make that sit nicely against your neck, and then you get straight into the Halibut pattern. And it is it's actually a lovely pattern to knit. I always put little markers between each of the sets of patterns so that if I make a mistake, I know it's within that series. And that is just for me been a fantastic little tip. There are increases when you do the color work, and that's how you get your increased yoke. Now, on a plus side, I think the design is gorgeous, as in the color work pattern, but something for me that I don't love is how the sleeves are lower. Look at that. I've been wearing this so much since I made it. It's already pilling. Anyway, so that's a little bit lower than where your armpit is. And so when you're wearing it, it's fine when I'm walking, and I like this, you know, crop length, and but don't be wanting to do any work because it just rides up So, you know, it's great if you're out walking or you're shopping or any of those things. And I honestly thought that I would struggle to find the weather to wear it in. And we've had a particularly mild winter, in my opinion. We've had some frosts, but it hasn't been freezing cold other than that. So I've been able to wear it a lot. And instead of a jacket, I've worn this. And also, this means I haven't had to wear scarves and things. It's been a great pattern. I would highly recommend it. So the gauge was 20 stitches to 28 rows, and I actually ended up just not even bothering to gauge this. I just knitted up in the 4.5mm needle, and that was it. Just made it work. That's one of the joys of top down. I do have yarn that sort of fits those, you know, a lot of my yarn fits that sort of criteria. And so this is a color that I did recently. It's a Romney from Rocky Basin. And that is 18 stitches to 29 rows and 190 meters per 100 grams, which doesn't quite fit what they're asking for, but it actually does go to gauge, and it, you know, would suit the pattern beautifully. So I'm actually thinking, not in the green because I've got a lot of the neutral. I think I might dye some of that up and do it with a white background this time, and then do the halibut in either a navy or a black, even a brown. But I suppose you think of a fish as being blue, but I've got no idea what colour a halibut is. I have to look it up. So, you know, according to that little gauge, that would knit up very nicely in this. And one of the things I'm trying to do is actually try and find patterns, because people are like really wanting to use the yarn, but you have to help them find patterns that suit the yarn, because they're not always very sure what to do. I think people who spin, they can work those things out. I mean, you're working out meters per 100 meters. Sorry, I don't know what is going on for Red, but she's making a bit of a noise in the telly room. But you know, you sort of wing things, make things work. Not really sure what else to say. So that is the halibut, all finished and done. I would highly recommend that pattern. Like I say, I'm going to knit it again. Shortcomings for me were the sleeves I knitted too long. The body work next time, I think I might make it in maybe another 3 or 4 centimeters longer than I did. But you know, like I say, first time you do something, it often is to me a trial run. You're just really working the pattern out. The next knitted object I've got complete is actually one I did for Taylor, and I really want to give it to her soon, and that was the Galanta by Carol Feller. I'll pop a picture of the Galanta in here now. It's actually, I think, a really versatile pattern in that, you know, you can do the vest or you can do a long sleeve version, and the cables are a nice little touch, or the mock cable I should say is a nice little touch. I totally screwed up with that, and I'll explain it in a minute. So really the Galanta is a pattern that uses, I would say, an Aran weight yarn, because it says 105 meters is what the yarn that she recommended per 100 grams. But the yarn that I used was one of my own, and that's 150 meters per 100 grams of a shed spun, this pink which is a shed spun yarn. And I managed to get gauged with the same size needles that she recommended, which was 4.5, 18 stitches and 26 rows. And yeah, so that's done. It's actually about 350 grams when I weighed it to make up the vest, and that is the second size, so a fairly small size, but that is the second size. So I would say for a size 10 New Zealand. So one of the things I clearly noticed when I made it, and Taylor's not bothered, I'm not bothered, is when I've blended the yarn, if you blend it in the carder, you get a lot more variation from ball to ball. If you blend it in the picker and then you put it through the carder and then it goes through the pin drafter, it's much less variegated. So on the plus side, you don't tend to get these lines in your knitting, but on the plus side of putting it through the carder and not through the picker, or should I say mixing on the carder and not through the picker, is I feel you get a much nicer heathered kind of look to that yarn. But that's not going to be for everybody, so I'm going to have to do a bit of each and people can choose what they want to do. So you can see here, this has been blended in the picker, and that's completely flat, even, whatever you want to call it, as opposed to this that was blended on the carder, and that to me has a lot more sort of character to it. I like it. So this is a Romney alpaca. It's shed made, and you know, really I've written here needle size 5 to 6 millimeters. That's really just a guideline because it depends on how you want your fabric to fall, and also the pattern, because people get very fixed and stuck on those things, but top-down knitting I think gives you a lot more scope to vary what size yarn you use and the needles and stuff like that. You may agree, you may not, you can tell me, it's fine, but that's what I found. So the Galanta is actually a lovely pattern. It took me 3 goes. I started off with this green, which has got a much higher alpaca content, and I just thought it was too heavy, so I changed it to the pink, which actually I started in another green and I then realized it didn't have enough, so then I changed to this green. And honestly, it took me till the 3rd go to realize that I had totally screwed up, because I had printed out the pattern and I printed out in black and white, and when I went, I was like wondering why my stitch count wasn't ending up the same as in the pattern. And on the 3rd go I realized that there was a red border around the pattern repeat, and I'd actually been including obviously what was an edge stitch in the pattern repeat. So I did get it right. I got it right on this last one, and you know, it's actually a really nice little detail. This same yarn here, that's to gauge for this, and if you look at this, it actually is a much softer yarn, and that's 190 meters per 100 grams, which is totally different to what Carol recommends, which is a yarn that is 105 meters per 100 grams. So I'll be interested to see if I make the same vest in this yarn, how much it actually uses. So I think I'll give that a go. I'm going to have a go at doing one in this, because I do need to get a lot of samples ready for shows and things, so I can let people know what it looks like, and yeah, do that. So yes, I would recommend the Galanta. It is a nice knit. Read the pattern properly, don't do a me and not read it well. The other thing was you get a choice of whether or not you want to do a ribbed edging or an I-cord edging, and I chose the I-cord. I thought it was a nice little touch. Now you'd think after I don't know how many decades of knitting that I would have done an I-cord edge on a garment, but I hadn't. It's the first time I think I've done it. I had to YouTube it up and get my skills going. Yeah, so the Galanta, actually, the construction on the Galanta is bottom up, and so you start off separately for the front and the back, and it's got this little open side vent, and then you join it in the round, continue with the pattern, and you're just decreasing how many of these mock cables that you do, and then you knit it in the round up until the armhole, and then you separate for front and back, and then as you go along, you're decreasing. It's actually a very nice decrease on the V, and then you're also doing the arm pattern as well. The shoulder is a 3 needle bind off, which gives, I think, a nice firm construction. And then, like I say, I chose to do the I-cord edging. So what I did was, you know, I honestly, when I came back to this, thought, wow, actually it's not as bad as I thought. I'm just going to finish it off, see what it looks like. Going to finish it off, because really all I've got to do is the V at the front and do the edging. I think for this one I'll try the rib edging just to see what the difference is and how much I like that. So watch this space, I'm going to finish it. So the next thing that I will talk about is my work in progress, which is the Florarium sweater by Teti Lutzak. And that is a pattern that is knit bottom up. I'll put a little picture in now of that. It's knitted in the let loopy, and I've got quite a few colors, but the main color that I've got in that to use was the natural color, so I've used that, and then I chose this as my contrast. And I would have liked a much more muted one like on the actual pattern, but I don't have it. So stash diving means putting up with what you've got, really, and that's what I've done. Once I've done that, I actually think I could make that out of some of my own yarn. I don't think it needs to be an unspun, because I think she recommends either let loopy or knitted in. And I sold my knitted in last year because I just didn't think I would get through it, and I wanted to concentrate on what I was making. So maybe I shouldn't have done that, but really I had just so much stuff that I didn't need that I just needed to move some of it along, and I just knew that people here struggle to get it and would be nice to pass that on to somebody else, so I did that. So with this pattern, I just want to tell you a little bit about it. It's knitted from the bottom up. I'll show you what I've done so far. Oh, fell on the floor. All right, so you do a provisional cast on, which is a crochet cast on, and then you start the color work. So if you look here, you can see these sort of little wee carries at the front of the yarn, at the front of the pattern. And so what I did was I actually did all the color work, and I got to the end of it and I was like, first of all I was like, why are they like carrying floats, and why are they telling me where to carry the floats when you've actually finished doing the motif? And then I realized, I have totally done that wrong. I should have been carrying them at the front. It's part of the pattern, and it's a very nice touch. So I undid that, went back to that first leaf, you want to call that, and then carried them at the front. So what you do is you sort of knit to where that float is, you move that carried yarn to the front, you knit your 2 stitches, move it back, and then you carry on with the pattern, and it just gives this lovely little detail. So you can see how much I've done. I've got to go to 35 centimeters, and then after that, so I'm actually, I think, at about 27 centimeters now, and then after that you do your sleeves, each of your sleeves, and then you join it in the round, and then you do the yoke and the color work on the yoke. So I'll give you a little update next time. The needle size is a 4.5 millimeter. So the joy, one of the things I love doing when I'm knitting in the round, sorry, I just dropped a stitch there, I picked that up. So I like to have the needle I'm knitting with, or the proper size, on the right needle, and then on the left I have a slightly smaller size, which just helps it slip off a little bit easier when you're knitting. And you can only obviously do that when you're in the round, and when you're doing sleeves, if you've got a small needle you can't, because you can't change it. But anyway, that's what I'm doing with that one. So that's the Florarium sweater. I do have something I'm wanting to do when I go away next week. Roger and I are going to Raglan again for a whole week, and so I'm going to pack up some knitting projects, and we're going to spend quite a lot of time on the knitting projects and finalizing the, what do you call it, finalizing the web shop and get that up and running. So it's kind of be semi-holiday but semi-working holiday as well. And he's going to take heaps of books. I like listening to audio books when I'm knitting, so I'll download a few of those and get ready. And hopefully we're just going to have a really nice relaxing week. We can bring Red with us, which is great. Yeah, but I'm going to do something for a friend. I'm going to go grab the wool now so I can show you all the yarn. Hang on a sec. Okay, so one of the things I have started trying to do when I go away is knit a pair of socks. And one of my dear friends had her birthday in March, and I said to her, I'm going to knit you a pair of socks. We're now what? End of July, and I haven't done it. I did dye up the yarn for it though in the mill, and do not ask me what I did, but that thing was so tangled it just sat in the naughty corner for a while. And then last night I said to Roger, I am going to sort out this yarn, and took me literally 4.5 hours. I started off downstairs while I was making tea, in between just kind of sorting it out, and then we sat and watched a couple of episodes of Slow Horses, and I finished, in fact we watched a couple of episodes. Roger went to bed and I was like, I am not going to bed till it's finished. So I'm not sure which sock pattern I'm going to do for her. I thought maybe I would even try and do a little band with the pattern in, a little colour work band in it. I mean, the yarn I think is interesting enough and the colours are nice. I think it might just knit nicely on its own. We'll see. Yeah, so it's either going to be a vanilla sock. I will keep you updated. I will get those finished while we're away. Once I get going on the knitting of socks, it actually doesn't take as long as it used to, or as long as I kind of in my mind think it's going to take. So that is one of my planned little projects. I'm going to do another Galanta. That's another planned project, and that's using some of the yarn that I've made. So let's have a little look at some of the yarn. Okay, so this is a lovely Romney alpaca, and I have processed that, and I had a little bit of fleece left over, so I might actually try and hand spin that. I'm not sure, because I have also made this up, which is Pourquoi Romney, and I think those colors go together very nicely, and I thought maybe I would make something with a bit of color work. I mean, Halibut. I can think of other things as well that I could give it a go, and I'm going to hand spin for a change. So I've started that. My hand spinning my hand spinning is not that, I don't think it's that even, but love the color so much. I just love it. So I've done 1.5 spools, and then I will ply it up and show you. I did do some on the mill, and what I've been trying to do is ply up little bits and spin little bits and just look at, when I change the settings with the same fleece, what actually happens. And so I made this yarn, and if you look at it, there's quite a lot of twist in this. Oh, come on. Maybe I need to have something more pronounced in the middle for it to... Ah, that's a bit better. You can see it's quite a high twist. So that would actually be nice for socks, except it's 100% wool. And I just don't know how durable that would be. there was a lovely little sample I knitted out of it. Well, lovely, I think it's lovely. Gives you an idea of the drape and the softness. And that, oh, I lied. It's not a Romney, that's a Polworth. You know, it's my favorite, Polworth. So I knit the sample on a 4.5mm needle, and I got 17 stitches and 29 rows. To me, I mean, that's definitely probably a worsted weight, and that's 170 meters per 100 grams. Again, the Galanta I reckon would be wonderful in that, and any jersey, cardi, whatever. It's got a very nice fabric to it, and I definitely think this is a very wearable fleece. Love it. So I haven't actually got a lot of this because I've been doing a lot of experimenting, but we'll see what, you know, I could maybe show you some other little samples of knitted bits depending on what I've been doing. The one thing I've noticed, and this is my biggest work, work in progress, is actually what's happening in the mill, and I'll talk a little bit about that later, and I will refer back to this little sample because it does kind of show what some of those issues are. But what I want to talk about next is the drawer for the yarn. And I could not, I mean, I literally spent a few days trying to find different ways of doing a random picker on YouTube, and I just couldn't find anything that worked or any links that worked, and I eventually just gave up and I typed every single name out. And then Judy popped round the one day and I said, oh, I was going to cut them up and pull one out of the hat. She said, no, don't do that. I'll just randomly pick 3 for you. I had one that I wanted to do for New Zealand, and then one for Australia, and then one for the rest of the world. So the 3 picks are, so for New Zealand, at Shelley Colette 322, you've won a pack. So if you can make contact with me on either Instagram or my email, which will be in the notes, that'd be good, and I can make a plan to put some yarn together for you. And then at Steffi Lightfoot 639 was another one, and I think, well, that's the rest of the world. I will tell you when I find out where she lives. And then at Ollie and May was the one that was drawn for Australia. So if all of you can just get hold of me on either Instagram or my email account, we will get those packages ready to go. And what I might do is actually do a little FaceTime, so you can, or send you some pictures of colors that you might want. I need to get an idea of your size, and we'll set you up for the huldra. I mean, actually, knit what you want. You could do a Galanta, it's just that the huldra is a free pattern, and that's why I recommended that. So yeah, so that's great. I'm very happy just to have that sort of done and out of the way now, and I really hope that you enjoy your yarn. The next thing to go through is the mill stuff. So in the mill, or in the shed, I should actually say the mill shed, I have made quite a bit of yarn recently. I'm not sure if I showed you these guys last time. This is the latest one, which is a Romney, like a lovely apple green color, and that is this sample here. Yep, it's a Romney. It knits up in a 4.5. Length per 100 grams is 190 meters per 100 grams. I mean, it's quite interesting, all the different ways of measuring length. I've done the, what's the name, McMorran scale where you weigh it. I've done the length where you measure on the meter and then you weigh that and then you times it by 100. I've actually done 2 meters, halved it, and then times it by 100 to get the meterage. But Judy, when she did a lovely sample for me, which I want to show you soon, she used a fishing line measure and came up with slightly different numbers. So I'm seriously considering trying to buy a yarn meter or yarn measure, and I just cannot believe the price of them. I mean, she used one that was, like I say, for fishing line, but she did say that, you know, if you've got a thicker yarn, you know, the accuracy is not, you have to allow for that in terms of how thick the yarn is as well. And so that was a little bit of something I've had to think about. But yes, I've got this lovely apple green color, and there's a reasonable amount of that. I think about 20 balls, so that's good. This is a Southdown Suffolk, which did I dye that? I dyed that after. So I dyed that after I had spun it. Now, I mean, if you look there, it seems to be quite uneven, which makes it more like a hand spun. And I have no idea why it does that. I'm waiting for some little apron things to come from the States, and I'm hoping that those will run more smoothly. So, I mean, that machine is 15 years old. I don't think those aprons have ever been changed, and they look really quite worn, aged, and I thought, well, that's the only other thing I can think of. The one thing I did find as well is if you're putting through a slightly thicker roving, it seems to be a little bit more uneven, but if I make the roving thinner, then that seems to improve how it goes through as well. So I will have to have a little bit more of a play with that and see if that makes a difference. So that's the pink. I've got the green, the purple, and there's some of that blue. Oh, this, what is this color? Is that teal? So this color, this is Shed Made. This is Rocky Basin Romney fleece. So Rocky Basin is a shepherdess or a sheep farming family in Hawke's Bay, and I met her at one of the shows, and she breeds sheep, which she shows, and sells the fleeces. So I actually bought some other fleece off her. It was quite funny because I talked to her about what, I said, oh, what do you have available? And then I said, oh, I quite like that one, and that one, I'll probably get those. And I thought, oh, I'll sort it out next week. But in the meantime, she actually posted it to me. So I was like, my sister rang and said, oh, you've got this big parcel here. And I was like, oh, when I realized what it was, I had to quickly get on to internet banking and pay her. I felt terrible that I hadn't actually done that straight away. But this is some of her fleece, and I think that's very wearable. So, you know, Romney is a very varied micron, but this, I would say it's in the mid-20s. I don't think it's a super soft, but it's definitely not coarse. I could wear that directly against my neck, and I love that color. And that is a blended color actually. So that's that one. Then there's this pink here, which is also a Rocky Romney, and that was also blended. That was actually really quite, some of it was quite red, and yeah, it came out like this. So that's also 170 meters per 100 grams. So, you know, it's a worsted weight, I would say, worsted or an Aran weight. This one is a little heavier, and this is an alpaca and Romney cross. And I would say, I think it was about 30% alpaca and the rest is Romney, but it's much, this is about 140, 150 meters per 100 grams, so it's a lot chunkier. But, you know, I would also say that's very wearable. Not my color by the looks of it, but very wearable. Would go nicely with that. Would go nicely with that. You know, it's a very nice color to mix with. So nicely with the blue. Although that's, yeah, so it's a very nice color. I love it. So I've definitely been doing some stuff in the mill, just trying to fine tune it. I dyed up some mohair for Claire Marie because she's knitting herself a Felix, and it just honestly makes such a difference to that sort of fluffiness, and it's quite a, you know, popular thing at the moment. I mean, you can see it's not evenly dyed, but that sort of adds a little bit of texture and character when you knit it up. It was exactly the same when I knitted up the sort of mustardy yellow one for Hannah. So yeah, that's that. That's about all of the mill stuff that I need to talk about. I think what we'll do now is we'll go down to the mill, but I'll have to film that on my phone because the camera, the charge in the battery doesn't hold, and so we won't get anything done if I'm not plugged into the mains. So ta-da, I'll take you down now and we'll go and have a little look. All right, come on down to the mill, let's have a look. Here we are. So over here is the wash station. I've got two sinks, as you can see. At the moment I've got some fleece in there, so I put it 2 washes, 3 rinses into my spinner, and then it goes out to dry. So this is a commission carding I'm doing for somebody, and that'll be ready to process today. And that's it. So if you look around the room, obviously I've got all my wall of yarn, and then there's the felt loom, and everything else is a bit of a mess, but you know, what can I say? I just move things and tidy up and move things and tidy up. But let's go down into the mill now. So I'm going to leave this here for the sheep just in case we see them. So welcome down to the mill. Ta-da! At last. Thanks, James. Right, so this is the first machine, the picking machine, and over here you will see there is a conveyor belt. There are 3 motors, so one is the conveyor belt going in, then there is a, what is that thing, James? You saw it, that wooden thing with the tines on, like it's what picks the wool. It was wooden, wasn't it, with tines on?
Swing arm.
Swing arm, okay.
Thing.
It's got a swing arm thing. And once it's been picked, it gets sucked up into that blower and then comes out into here. And, you know, it just fills up. I have to close it up with this netting, which is really annoying, and then pull this other thing over the top, and then it sort of keeps the fleece in, but you can see there's always little bits that come out. Yeah, so I pick it twice minimum, and then once it's been picked, it then goes over to the carder. So I'll show you the carding machine now. So shall we go over there? I can cut these things a bit. This is the carding machine. It is an Italian carding machine and is was bought new when the mill was put together. It's a Ramella, and basically what you do is you weigh the fleece, weigh it over here, and then put a full amount on the first run through, and then after that, as the fleece hits about this point, I then weigh out the next bit, lay it on the carding machine, and then it runs through. So you can see here there are lots of rollers, and so there are lots of rollers, and it eventually comes down to the doffer here and then comes through through this roller, and then I put it into the buckets. So this is the end. I've just left it the end bit because, well, you just got to keep running it a little bit just to clean the rollers. What I also do is I have this fabulous brush. It's called a fettling brush, and this is one of my favorite buys actually, because look how nicely that cleans the rollers up. It cleans it like a dream. There is waste product that goes underneath, and what was fabulous was I put through about 4.5 kilos, and there's hardly any that's gone underneath this time, so most of it's come through. This is a Rocky Basin Romney, which is in the buckets here, and I'm about to put that through today on the pin drafter. So I'm going to put through 5 at one go on the pin drafter today. So what happens is you set them all up, put them through the pin drafter. Inside here are 2 sets of rotating pins, and basically the pins comb the fleece and align the fibers a little bit more. And then at the end here is a roller. Over here is a roller, and that is attached to it's called a draft roller. Oops. And that attaches, that slows the progress of the fleece, and it helps stretch it. So 1 meter of fleece going in is, I think, about 4 meters coming out. And then it goes into the coiler and goes down into this bucket underneath and rotates around. So this is a refurbished Warner Swayze pin drafter. I think it's from the 70s. So the pin drafter, the picker are both, and the coilers, they are refurbished machines. And the carding machine was new, and the spinning machine is new. So when it's gone through here once, I usually put it through 3 times, very, very seldom being able to do it twice. So when it comes out of here, it's ready to go on the spinner. So what I do is I take a meter length of this, and then I weigh it on my little, I call it my drug scale, but I weigh it on my little scale, and that gives me a weight which I can calculate the numbers for the spinner. So from this, 3 times through here, then we go over to the spinner, which is over here. So the spinner was developed by a guy called, I think, Marcel, and from Carolina Spinners, and I think there are 26 of these around the world. I think I'm the only one that's not in America. Unfortunately, Marcel died, and so that was the end of his business there. So there's, like I said, there's only 26. So this is a fairly new machine. It has its own little foibles and challenges, one of which is I only have 3 of these rollers. I should have 4. I've never had more than 6 running at the same time, and I literally can't remember the last time I had 6 running. And some of that is because these aprons are rubber or plastic, rubber, I'm not sure. But if the fleece isn't right, it's basically broken the rubber or the plastic. And, you know, James and I talked about it, and we pretty much decided they were aged and probably not working very well. So I have ordered some new ones and just waiting for those to come. So when they come, we have to dismantle this whole roller to be able to put new aprons on, and then we'll set it all up, and then who knows, at that stage we might have 6 running at the same time. That would be a first. The other thing is I have a broken one of these, and James has taken it to an engineering firm in town to see whether or not we can get it machined so that we can buy some local bearings to go in it and get it fixed up, because the parts are all there. Hey, it's just really well, getting it put together and getting replacement bearings, and then we'll see. You never know, we could actually have 4 of these running in the next few weeks. So initially what you do is you're going to set it up to run singles. So a single, basically, you know, if you're a hand spinner, you know, a single is a single thread, and then once you've run all your singles through, you then are going to ply it. So you're going to twist it one way, which is on this machine a Z for spinning, and then when you ply it, it's S plying. So you can put up 2 or 3 singles to make either a 2 or 3 ply yarn. And obviously if you have 3 plies, it's going to be thicker, 2 plies is going to be thinner. So this is the plying tool, and I have forgotten the name of what it is, but it's basically the plying tool that gets attached, and you have to feed it through the little pigtail bits, and then you put it onto an empty spool on here, and then you can I can set 6 of those up easily, and then just get some numbers by measuring a piece of the yarn, and then off you go, ply it, and then that's all done on the spinning machine. Over here there's all these little settings that you have to put on in terms of how fast the spindle speed, which is, you know, these, how fast they go, how fast the front roller goes, how fast the back roller goes. So all of those things will affect the thickness of the single, and that will also depend on the type of fleece or yarn, because sometimes you have to adapt to what the yarn is prepared to do. Yeah, so it's not necessarily what I want it to do, it's sometimes what the actual fleece wants to do. So that is the spinner, and then after it's spun, then we take the spindles with the plied yarn on, and they come over here to this machine, which is a skein winder. So I mean, it has power to it, but when we got the machines, the lady we bought them from said, oh, it kept giving her a shock. So I haven't used it, but I'm going to get the Sparky to check it sometime and then see if we can set it up, because when you do that, I think you can set up how many turns it does. So if you can calculate how many turns you need for 100 grams, you can just basically set it up and walk away. At the moment, I'm just sort of standing there and having a guess, and I weigh the spool, and then when 100 grams has come off the spool, then I stop it, tie them all up, take them off, wash them or steam them, and get them ready to go. So that's basically the mill. Very quick little push through, but I can show you some other bits in a bit more detail over time. But I have been promising this, so I thought, oh, we just got to get it done. Okay, thanks.
Oh,
that's it.
I haven't informed.
You liar. I can see the
Watching the chick flick show. We're ready to move along now.
Here, a dedicated team match abandoned dogs.
Let me look at you, sweetheart. They're helpless little creatures. They don't deserve this.
with hopeful